are the shining star. You shouldn't stay in it no matter what.
They want to do something fancy. Oh, you're a woman, you probably code worse.
Basically build stronger muscles to get there.
You come from such a male-dominated world.
You know, the topic of failure.
Better. They are earlier in their journey, so they most probably took care of their data.
Yeah, so today at Beyond 9 to 5 Voices, we have a very special guest, Anastasia, who is an expert in data and AI, who went through a path from being a purely technical engineer towards a consultant with a more business focus. And today we're going to focus on her career path, on her journey, and some key takeaways she would like to share with you guys.
Yeah, welcome, Anastasia. It's nice to have you here. I mean, you guys know each other already for quite some time. Yes. I had a pleasure to meet you, I think 1 month back, right? We had a dinner before Christmas.
Yes.
And it went super fast. Like the time flew by. It was a pleasure to talking to you. That's why we are super happy to have you here.
Thanks a lot for the invitation. It's a great honor to be your first guest for the podcast. And I'm looking forward to our discussion today.
Yeah, us too. So let's maybe start a little bit. I know you quite some time now, but obviously our listeners don't. So it would be great for you to introduce a little bit yourself, talk a little bit about your path. So over to you.
So a little bit for my background. So originally I come from Greece. This is where I grew up. I grew up in a Greek island, which is called Samos. This is where I spent most of my life until I decided to go study at the university in Athens. So I started studying in Athens. I started studying computer science. And then in 2015, I decided that I want to see a university abroad because I was always passionate and wanted to see a university of, let's say, European standards, very advanced and so on. So I applied for the Erasmus exchange program and I went to Norway for approximately half a year. And I did there the exchange program for the master in computer science, even though I was still a bachelor student back in my home country. Then I came back to Greece, came back to Athens. I continued writing my thesis. Then I graduated. And then in 2017, I started my professional career. I started first by going to Geneva and working for CERN as an internship. And then from there, I moved to Germany, where I started my master's degree in data engineering and analytics at the Technical University of Munich. And my professional career also continued in Munich as well, with in the beginning being a researcher in medical imaging and then meeting Anastasia at Innovex for approximately a year. And then life brought me to Switzerland. I started working in banking at Credit Suisse back then, until 2023, where I decided that I want to go a bit more towards management, towards more strategy, where I decided to join BCG, Boston Consulting Group. And this is where I am right now, an IT architect at Boston Consulting Group.
Great. I would think it's quite the path. And especially, you just mentioned that you wanted to shift a little bit from purely engineering to business. And I know we talked a lot about that, just the two of us, but let's maybe dive a little bit into this part. Why did you want to switch? What interested you about this switch? And how do you like it, actually?
I always enjoyed this part that you have more contact with the stakeholders, that you think a bit more strategically. But this is not something that it comes early in your career as an engineer. This is something that it comes later. So when you're an engineer, getting this contact with business and stakeholders doesn't come very early because usually you are focused on the technical topics and delivering the technical tasks. So in the last year, when I was at Credit Suisse, I moved on to a leadership position, so a leading data science position. I started being on a technical lead side, but also being line manager for 2 people. And this is where I started getting more exposed to talking to business, talking to stakeholders, managing people, and so on. And this is where I realized that actually I am not the typical engineer that enjoys just writing code, pushing my code, committing my code, and that's it. I liked more this action that you talk to the business, you try to identify the requirements, and then those requirements have to be translated into a proper format and technical guidance for the team. So, and also the more strategic part. So what we do with the product, how we push it, and so on. And this is where it was clear to me that I shouldn't continue in a pure engineering role, but rather do a little bit of a switch and go more closer to business. And that's what motivated me to apply to a management consultant firm.
So do you write any code at all right now?
Right now, no.
Do you miss it?
I can't say that I miss it that much. I think I would love to continue doing the analytics. So when I get a data set so that I can see the insights, do the projection, see what we have there, what are the statistics, and do the analysis. This is something I would really love. But then actually I would like then go back to business and tell them, look, those are the insights that we are having. What are we doing? So the data-driven approach. So this is something I still enjoy doing. But it wouldn't make me happy just to write the code, deploy whatever I do, and then that's it.
It's also a different level of creativity, probably. Like when you're an ML engineer or engineer in total, you are writing code. You have a task, and you need to be creative to get to that, right? To the result. With the, at least from what I hear, you are saying from the business perspective, it's like you have a super wide chess play. Basically, you have the stakeholders, you have different parties. You need always to see, okay, how to make everyone happy in terms of also to understand what are the pain points, what the people really need, and what they need to have the decision based on the data that you're mentioning. So is this the assumption correct? Like, would you, if you could again make the same decision to change from the engineering completely into business backed with the data science?
Yes, totally. Because I always had this feeling that I like something more than the pure engineering. So I like more the bigger picture, having a more holistic view on the topic, and this strategic aspect on what we do, what decisions we need to make in order to be successful, deploy something properly, and bring value, because that's also where the importance is. So this is something that was always exciting much more than the technical topic. Of course, there were points in my life that I would be really excited about the technical topics. And that was also the reason that I was working as an engineer. I think it's important that you also get this experience, because if you haven't seen engineering from itself, from inside, I think it's harder to move to more strategic leadership positions that they are about tech. Just focusing on tech, I think it gives you a big advantage if you understand what is the technical topics under. So I would definitely do it. And I think for the people who are able to write code and they know how this works, I think it's a big advantage when you can just do the analysis on your own and then provide with all those insights the business. Because I can do it. I don't need to ask someone else to do it. And I think this is also the step towards being more data-driven. That's the definition. You start from the data and then you take it from there, basically.
You mentioned a very interesting point that you need to be technical, have a technical background in order to get to the leadership position whenever you want to be like chief product officer, which I agree 100% on. But what do you think, or what would you say, do you need to come from the tech first, or is there any room for the pace for the path where you are starting in business, but then you're getting involved into the technology? You learn how to code, you learn how to think about the technical constructs and how to bring it all together, and then develop its way to the.
I don't believe in these prearranged paths. I think that if there is something that you really like doing, you always find a way to do it. So if you are a business person and you understand the importance of having technical skills or acquiring technical skills, there are so many things you can do. YouTube channels, platforms that you can follow classes. The big universities like Stanford, they have open classes that you can go and take the material and work on it. Of course, it might be harder, but it's not impossible. You can start it and then find different ways to do it.
I would say actually now it has never been easier
Exactly.
to get
there
those
is
skills.
so many resources. I think we really started it when it started. Like, I really remember.
When did you get into it, actually? I think I started in 2016.
You mean into the data science?
Yes, like with really focusing on data science.
So I started, I would say, from my bachelor. And that's, I think, an interesting story time, because we had this class. So it was computer science degree. And if I remember correctly, in the third year, you could get a specialization. And I went with a specialization in artificial intelligence. And then this is how it came to me, the class of pattern recognition, which it was the introduction to all the basic things, perceptron. And I remember being in a very small room in the university. It was not like the typical auditorium, with a professor that would come into the class. His name was Angelos Pikrakis. He didn't have slides. He didn't have anything. He just had his original book in front of his desk. And then he would start writing things on the blackboard and pointing questions to the audience. And it was this type of lecture that he's taking you with him in the journey. And he started mentioning all those things about robotics, data science, the power of data. And that was the first touch I had with data science.
Did you ever, when you just started out with, let's say, your first job in data science, did you ever experience imposter syndrome?
Oh, all the time. I don't think it will go away, to be honest, because I've met incredible people in my life. I have been in very competitive environments, surrounded with people that they are really top at what they are doing, especially now at BCG. People are really good. And I think it's impossible not to have it, to be honest, because you also want to be good, right? You also want to be out there, perform well, and bring the best out of you. And it's not easy. It's not easy. So all the time, because there is.
How do you deal with it? I mean, especially in the beginning, when you are experiencing it the first time and you have no idea how to deal with it. Is there something you would tell yourself now, like when you just started out, when you first experienced something like that?
So for me, the first reaction was panic, that I'm not good. I am lagging behind everything. I need to get to know this. I need to get to know that. I need to start studying more, dive deeper into this. That was my first reaction, that I am in a panic mode. I'm lagging behind. Something is not going well. But then as the time passes, you start rationalizing it. And then I start thinking, okay, I am here for a reason. I was not given this because someone was generous and gave it to me. I passed through many interview stages. I was evaluated. I have been successful in my life. So I'm here for a reason. So I think that's the first thing you need to start thinking in the process. And then calm down, take a deep breath, and start thinking, okay, how can I solve what I have now? And then start designing a draft. And then you see that the more you start working on the draft, the more the ideas are coming on the table. And then you start gradually building this thing. But definitely my first reaction is panic. And I cannot really say that right now is not panic anymore. I think
it's
difficult. It's difficult because people are really good out there.
Yeah.
It's really high, the competition.
I mean, because you are very driven and you surround yourself with other people.
Yes, because you also want to be surrounded by good people, right?
Exactly.
I don't want to be surrounded by people that I don't have anything to learn from. So people are extremely good, especially here in Zurich. ETH is one of the best technical universities you can find in Europe. And these people are in the market. And everyone had his own career with his own success, and people are really competitive. They're very competent. They know a lot of things. So it is a challenge.
It is, but it doesn't mean that then you're an imposter who doesn't deserve the place there, right? I think
Exactly.
You mentioned a great point. It's at some point, it's when you are starting off, right, and you're landing in those professional life, you start thinking, okay, university was, we established this already during this conversation. It's completely different. They basically teach you how to learn, and now you are on the field and you are starting to realize, okay, I need to learn this. I need to get up to speed to be able to perform. So imposter syndrome, I think, tends to be more in the beginning of your career. Then it shifts towards, okay, I realize that it's fine. It's actually great that I have smarter people in the room because I can learn from them. But at the same time, I know what you mentioned, right? That I deserve this place here. I went through all the interviews. There's obviously a reason why am I here. And I think this is not anymore this straight line between the imposter syndrome. Okay, that's everything. But it blurs into, okay, now I know I deserve this. I'm confident of what I've done so far. And I'm ambitious where I'm going to with all these great people in the room, or in BCG in your case. And the second point that you mentioned, then I start executing on it, right? With a draft, with iterating, with asking those people for input, for help, because you know that through that you will be able to grow, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of starting small.
Yeah.
It looks big when you are inside this and you have all this thing happening around you, because you see someone that has climbed a really big mountain and you are not on the top of the mountain, or you think that you are not on the top of the same mountain. But then you start from something small. And I think this is also a little bit let's say, the medicine that you give to yourself. Like, take a small breath, start from something small, and then it comes out. Like, you start drawing something and then a new idea comes and you improve the previous one. And then at some point you are also feeling that, yes, now we're on the same peak, basically. So I would say really rationalize it. So the moment it happens, and I think it's good if you feel the panic as well. You shouldn't suppress it. So if you feel panic and you feel, damn, I'm falling behind, it's good to also feel that, because it also gives you motivation, right? But don't let this overtake everything else so that then you feel that you cannot do anything. No, you feel it, but then you start rationalizing and you start small, building something.
You know what I really liked? So Mel Robbins has a lot of podcasts on this topic of imposter syndrome. And what I really liked is when she shared on one podcast that apparently, according to some research studies, the part in your brain which gets activated when you're anxious and you feel stress and panic is actually the same part of your brain that gets activated when you're excited. So a good thing that you can do is try to rephrase it that you are actually excited. But because let's say you have an interview with a big tech company and you have been looking forward to it. You're anxious, you have panic, but actually you're excited about it. So you can rephrase that in your brain, and apparently it works very well.
I love that one. Also from personal experience, I typically think back to this technique when I'm about to go on stage. That I know that there are a lot of people there and I need to perform in my best interest, of course. But that's why it really works, because you're anxious. You're okay. So I don't know. I repeated it 2,000 times, or okay, I'm exaggerating, but like I know I'm prepared, but this anxiousness still is there. Anxiety is there. And when the moment you tell yourself, I'm actually excited to go there. I'm excited to go out there. It's literally really like pumping you up a bit. It shifts the gear. Yeah. So I love that one. Yeah.
And another part of this, what I really liked is, I think it was her daughter who shared, actually, I cannot be an imposter if I'm a beginner. So, a lot of people think I'm an imposter. Why am I here? I have no idea what I'm doing. Yeah. But you're a beginner. It's totally fine, right? So it's fine that you don't know this part. You're just starting out. How the hell are you supposed to know that? So it doesn't mean that you need to stop. It just means that you need to keep on learning.
Yeah, I really like that one. That's a very insightful one.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about imposter syndrome. I would actually like to talk a little bit about a phenomenon which also happens often, especially to women, obviously in the tech or a male-dominated field. Mm-hmm. How do you build resilience as a woman, especially an engineer? You come in, usually your teams are made up of men. Your team leads usually are also men. In most of the time. How do you thrive as a woman in such a field?
Mm-hmm. So maybe I might turn a little bit the question, because I think I have been lucky so far, and I haven't really felt that I need to build resilience just because I'm a woman. I didn't really feel that I need to gain confidence just because I'm a woman. I felt that I need to get confidence, I need to get resilience because it's really competitive out there. And no matter who is next to you, if it's a woman or a man, you need to have those two features. So I haven't really felt this just because I'm a woman. I felt it because we are in a really competitive field. If you want to be in a top performing company, you need to be good. You don't get into these companies without those features. So I felt it more from this perspective. Mm-hmm. And how I build confidence. I think the first and the most important thing is that I don't feel that I had special treatment. And this goes a little bit more to the woman topic, because a lot of times I've seen companies that they make the path easier for women, that you won't have the same interview steps if you are a woman, you might have easier path to promotion because you are a woman. And I think this special treatment already gives you a disadvantage as a woman. So the fact that I've been through the same process as everyone else, I applied through the same ways to everything in my life, to going to CERN, to going to a master degree, to going to Credit Suisse, to going to BCG, everything. I followed exactly the same steps as everyone. I've been through the same interview steps in the process. And I think this gave me the confidence that I'm here because I was the best. Between the people that they were interviewed, between the people that they applied, I was the one that they picked because I was the best. I didn't get it because of special treatment.
I like this actually is the best basis against imposter syndrome. Yes, because otherwise it's just, well, I got in because I'm a woman. I also am totally against quotas on this because, first of all, why the best person for the job should be there, then you should just work on that the decision process is not skewed towards a specific or not biased, or at least less biased, because you can never get rid of it entirely, right? But if you just got it because you're a woman, well, I think that's the best foundation for imposter syndrome.
Yeah, I am really passionate about this topic because I've seen conversations that, because, for example, they want to increase the percentage of women attending engineering schools, they want to lower, for example, the grades because there are not so many women applying, so they would lower the grade in order to get more women. And I think this doesn't help. For example, just to give an example, if you have a woman and a man, bring them through the same interview process, and if in the end, both of them are performing really well, then pick the woman, because then you can increase the quota for women, right? But bring them through the same stages.
So if you remember, I went to the Women Plus and Data and AI conference where I also gave the talk. And I went to a talk by a researcher. I think she was at some AI startup. I cannot remember the name. And she did a very interesting presentation on the inverse relationship of, if you look at the countries where the equality rights or the women rights are very far developed, they have the percentage of women in STEM. And if you look the other way around, the highest percentage is actually at countries where it's where they have the least developed women rights, or not as much, or the equality is very low. So, for instance, in India, you wouldn't be imagine. You would be surprised how many women in Arabic worlds are actually pursuing STEM. So there's this inverse relationship in a way, and nobody really knows why.
Because
So-
I would be interested to know why.
Nobody knows, but in a way, I would
Maybe
see-
they want to break the standard that because it's a more conservative society, then maybe they feel this need that actually I want to do the opposite than what everyone else is imposing. But maybe a little bit also a food for thought. Do you think because we are used in studying in a field that is more men, and this is something that starts from early in our careers, do you think that if you are an engineer and if you come from such a male-dominated world, you feel a bit more comfortable when in the room is more men because you are more used to it?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the men, because as you said, I mean, we worked also at the same place, and we got quite lucky there that there was no behavior towards women in a way that, you're a woman, you probably code worse. Nobody said that in a way, and nobody thought that. So it was a very safe space to grow as a female engineer. But for instance, I remember when I was in my home country in a co-working space, and I was writing my master's thesis, which was about PDE-based deep learning. So I had some physics papers up there, and there were some guys in the background being loud as hell. And I told them that, I'm sorry, but this is supposed to be a quiet space. And they looked at me, and then they started behaving like, oh, you're probably the secretary or what? And then they looked at the papers I had, and it was like physical models and whatever. And like, oh, what are you doing there, little girl? And that grinded my gears, of course.
No
So
way.
I think it really depends on the men. I would say, except besides situations like this, I have not experienced something like this at a work environment, luckily. But I'm 100% sure that there are women who experience something like that. And this is really... This is fucked up. I mean, this is not supposed to be like this, but it is like this. So women definitely have to acknowledge, yes, there are situations like this. You need to brace yourself for situations like this. And only if you are in a situation like this doesn't mean, first of all, that you need to stay in it. And second of all, you can deal with it.
I think this is a situation you shouldn't stay in it no matter what. Because I have also heard situations that this is caused by women to women, because this is another chapter.
Yeah.
So I must say that if you find yourself in a situation like this, no matter what is the gender, is a situation that you shouldn't be there, because also nowadays all the workplaces, they become much more modern. There is much more acceptance for diversity, for equality, for having more women on board. And I think that people are very careful as well. So that's why I'm saying I'm lucky, because in the place that I've worked, I haven't seen that, because I have seen the evolvement in the working places. But I must say that I've heard stories that the same can happen from women to women. And I think this is even worse, actually, than happening from men to women. So I think the conclusion is that no matter what is the gender here, if you are in a situation like this shouldn't be acceptable. You shouldn't let other people make you feel uncomfortable. And if they make you feel... If they say something that makes you feel uncomfortable, this is not okay. And there are many ways that you can communicate this, make it clear, make it visible. And I believe that the companies offer the support nowadays that if something happens to you, then there are also other ways of escalation as well.
Actually, I would like to look into, the topic of failure. Have you experienced a specific situation where you thought, okay, I think that's a failure, but which might be then a blessing in disguise, meaning that, for instance, you work towards something, might be a specific job at a specific company or a specific project outcome, and then it didn't turn out the way you thought. You were crushed, but in the end, it was even better that you didn't, for instance, end up at this place. Did you have a situation like this? You can think about it.
Yeah, I need to think about it. But the one that clearly comes to me, the first thing that comes to it goes quite back in my career. And it was during this time from national exams to university, getting into the university. Just to give a little bit the background, because I don't know if it works the same in Germany or in your own countries. So in Greece, in order to get to the university, you need to take the national exams. And then depending on the national exams, so the best you perform, the best the university you can enter. And in general, at school, I always used to be a good student. But in the last years of high school, I started not paying so much attention anymore to studying, to the classes, and so on, for XY reasons. I still had strong foundations because I have always been a good student. But then, of course, my performance was not what someone would expect from me being a really good student in the national exams. And as a result, I didn't enter one of the top universities in Greece. So top university in Greece, if you want to study computer science, is the National Technical University of Athens, or any technical university that you have in the major cities, Thessaloniki, Patra as well, which is another city. So I didn't end up in any of those universities. And the first year, when I went in the university that I was studying, it was really difficult because I started realizing the impact of my decision not to study as much as I should study, and started thinking that I could also be in a technical university. I could also be in these places. And I started feeling disappointed by myself, very sad. I was very confused. I was thinking that maybe I should get again the national exams and enter into a technical university. But then at the same time, I was keep going. In my classes, I was following and so on. And at some point, I realized that it doesn't matter at which university you are. It doesn't matter. I was coming from this mindset, which I think is very characteristic to the Greek society, that you need to have big titles. You need to be in big universities, you need to be a doctor, you need to be a lawyer, you need to be in a technical university in order to be successful. And then I started discovering that it's actually the personal effort that you put. And I started seeing people from my university going to CERN, for example. I was not the only one that went. Or I started seeing people doing internships at Amazon or in big companies in London. And I started thinking that if I study all the things I have and I go deeper and deeper on my own, why should I be worse than someone who has studied in a better university? Of course, being in a better university comes with a lot of advantages because you are surrounded by people that they are really good. You are within an elite of students. And this is incredible because the standards are very high and your surrounding is also pushing you to succeed. You have really good professors. You go really deep in everything. So it also has the benefits. But it doesn't mean that you can also not find your path and make it to have a successful career, even if you are not in the top of the top of the top universities. And I think through this failure, which I'm not sure if it's a failure, I think I wouldn't like to call it a failure. For me, at that moment, it was really difficult. My first year was really difficult because I always had these second thoughts. I needed to study more. I should go take the national exams again. I should put more effort. And then I realized that you need to make it work with whatever comes to you. And this is what it came to me. It was the impact of my decisions at high school. But I think it made me stronger in finding my way out, because then I started trying to find people from those universities, exchange with them. ask them what is the career that they want to follow, always following them and admiring them. And I think this is what made me find my way out and start building on that. So yeah, my conclusion from this is like, work with what you have. Like if you identify something that went wrong, I think that's already the first step to success. And then you start building it from where you can. There is not magic point that you need to be in order to be successful. Everyone has different paths, and you can make it from wherever you come. And the only requirement is that you want to make it. That's the only way. And then you find the way out.
And now also you have so many opportunities to learn online, like to study some stuff, to find information. I'm fully with you. Top-notch university gives you a lot of perks, and it basically gives you probably even a head start if maybe you will nail that career.
It gives you also connection to good companies. It gives you start on a peak that is a bit higher. That is like a stepping stone that is a bit higher, but it doesn't mean that if you start from a bit lower, that you cannot reach the same heights as well.
Basically build stronger muscles to get there.
Yeah, I mean, I also read a study where actually, if you look just at the States, that the most successful founders, they don't come from Stanford. They don't come from the Ivy League. They come from universities you probably have never heard about.
Mm-hmm. I really appreciate those stories, those success stories, because I also don't come from a top bachelor degree. I mean, TUM is really, really good in Germany, but my bachelor degree doesn't come from a top university in Greece. It's still a very good one, but it's not the top one if you want to study engineering. And for me, the people that they had similar career paths, so being in universities that they were not the top, that they found their way around, I was always looking up to them as role models, because it showed me that it's possible, that you don't need to be on the Ivy League, you don't need to be at Cambridge or at Oxford in order to be successful and do something good.
I actually would like, just talking now about successful founders, I'd like to go a little bit into the topic of entrepreneurship. I actually saw a statistics which showed that among Gen Zs, apparently the title they have the most often right now, if you look at LinkedIn, is founder. And it doesn't necessarily mean that they build towards a unicorn startup, but at least that they have a side hustle that they monetize. And I think this is great. I think it's great. It partially also stems a lot from so many layoffs or uncertainty with respect to jobs. But I think this is great. What do you guys think about that?
I'm totally with you on that. And I think especially in the technical world, meaning in the software world, that you don't need to have big investment. You need your laptop and coding skills. You have the platforms that they can use for making it as a product, making the marketing and so on. I think it is so easy nowadays to make it, especially in the IT world, that I think if someone has an idea, they should really try it. They should really go for it.
Yeah. I also agree that it's 2 points. First, you're already saying is that it's easier. We have the environment that allows you to do so, allows to go out, explore, fail, whatever, start over again. No one is going to judge. Everyone is going to just not approve of you, but encourage you to do so. And the second thing is that, again, about the path, there is no right path right now. So there are people who are starting at the university, who are dropping off Stanford or Institute of Technology, regardless or not, to start own business. But there are also people who probably like all of us, we started working at the company. We started gaining experience somewhere. And then maybe or maybe not, at some point of time, you're saying, okay, I've gained enough knowledge, I've gained enough experience.
This has been great, but let's move on.
But let's do something on my own.
Yeah,
because I believe that at some point, corporate world makes you tired.
Okay, let's maybe go to the next part where we dive a little bit into the field of expertise of our guest. So, given that we have an expert in data and AI here with us, let's maybe talk a little bit about a topic which is very important with respect to companies getting into the field of AI, data governance and AI transformation. I would maybe hand over to you. What can you maybe share about this? What is data governance to begin with? Why is it important for organizations? And maybe some pain points companies face when approaching an AI transformation.
All right. So maybe let's start with defining what is data governance. And then here we can say that data governance touches all the life cycle management of data, from the point of view that you identify your data, that your data is secure, that you can access your data, that your data has good quality. So it's all the life cycle for the data management. And then why is it important? It's important because everything that has to do with AI starts and ends with data. If your data is not good, you cannot get good insights. You cannot get accurate insights. And it's very important to put this structure, set up the responsibilities, have the proper tools in place so that you can utilize at its most the data that you have and you own as a company. And I believe that this is a very important part of the AI transformation. So if you want to start getting value from the data that you have, then this is a very important step that you need to make.
What would you like? How would you typically assess the data maturity then of the clients you're working with in your daily job? And what would you recommend them? Like, if they are not mature enough in terms of their data, should they let go of AI so far? Should they start already and use AI in order to get the data to the state that it needs for further insights and actually driving business value? What are your experience in this?
So I think, as you said, starting with assessing the maturity of the company in terms of data is a very first step and very fundamental, because you need to understand where are you standing within your company. Because if the company is big, I think a lot of times you don't have the full picture, because some departments might be a bit more advanced, some departments might not be that advanced. And also it's important that you know where do you stand with comparison to the market. So a benchmarking. And I think that there are a few important dimensions you need to assess. I think the first one comes with the data structure, meaning which departments have data, what type of data, so what is the domain of the data. Then the second one, I think, is the roles, meaning do you have a part of the company in your organizational structure that is specifically dedicated to data governance, because you need a lot of different roles to make sure that you have proper data governance. You need a CDO, you need a data steward, you need a data owner, you need someone who ensures that you are compliant in your data. So there are a lot of different roles that you need to have in order that you execute this data governance from all the aspects. Then another important thing is the quality of the data. So you need to understand how good is the quality, what are you missing, and so on. And the last one I would say is all the tools that you want to use in order to set up a proper data governance. And this goes from everything from data cataloging, data quality monitoring, up to having even a data marketplace so that you can assess the data.
What would you tell companies which are or have been in quite a panic mode since the launch of ChatGPT, and they think, okay, we need to have something, but we don't have anything. We need to do something. And they just look at or suffer from shiny object syndrome, but they don't have anything to start with. Mm-hmm. What would you advise? What advice would you give to them in this situation they're in right now? In this
I think this
mode?
goes a little bit more to the direction of AI transformation, because in order for you to be able to use tools like ChatGPT and have actually a product out of it for your company, it requires, it's quite of a journey until you reach this stage, because it means that you have really good quality of your data. You can access your data very fast. You know what is in the data, you know the documentation and so on. So I would say that this is a little bit goes more to the direction of the AI transformation. And I think is that you approach the topic from the top and from the bottom. And from the top, I mean that you need to have a strategy that all the executive board is aligned on it, so that they can support each other, because you need all the departments to work together usually. And at the same time, you need to involve the people who are seeing the data, so the engineers that they are working with it. And then they can basically inject you with these ideas and use cases that you can start implementing. And then you can identify the use cases that they would have the highest value, and that you can implement them within the shortest amount of time with the things that you have already. So identify these use cases that they can drive the value and see what is the benefit actually, because when you see the value, you can also convince more and more people that actually there is a reason for us as a company to start pursuing more of AI solutions. And then I would say while you identify and you have find those use cases, the small ones with the biggest value that you want to implement, at the same time, maybe you also start building some foundations, meaning you start thinking about data governance, you start thinking about technological stack, because you have a lot of legacy systems, which a lot of times they do not support the modern technology. So, and then as soon as you start building this, and then you also have the use cases, then you can start going more into scale. So this is how I would approach the problem.
100% agree.
Yeah.
That also goes, as you mentioned, right, top and bottom, and more for the innovative companies that say, hey, we want now because it's out there, we are afraid of missing out. But let me shift the table a bit. But also sticking to the older companies, right? Data quality, but also trust in the data is important. It goes direction change management a bit. How do you bring people to actually trust in the data foundation that they're using to make some decisions, or AI triggering some recommendations for the business related decisions? What are the key points, any guardrails around privacy, compliance of the data that would contribute to that trust in the data foundation? What are the key points that you would highlight?
Mm-hmm. So I think this goes a bit to the direction of the roles that you need to have, because you need to have someone who is responsible for compliance and can make sure that whatever you do with your data follows all the legislation that is coming, like GDPR, also now the EU AI Act. So I would say that this is a specific role within this data governance universe that you need to have in order to ensure that you are safe with your data, that you don't use features that you shouldn't use, that you respect the preferences of the users, because the user can give his consent on whether his data or her data should be used or no. So you need to, I believe that this is a specific role that needs to have focus completely on the legal aspect and the compliance aspect.
And now we are in the field of ownership, of restructuring the organization, especially in large organizations where they just start out. This is such a mess because nobody wants to be responsible, or nobody knows who should be responsible from the existing people, who should come into which structure, I would suggest let's maybe focus on some examples. Do you have maybe some examples to share of some companies where they used data governance and or AI transformation to evolve, to grow their business, to improve something, to change something?
So I think the first example that comes to my mind is JP Morgan, because they have developed a platform for their data assets in wealth management. that they can actually identify the different type of data and aggregate all the different sources, so that whoever wants to invest, they can actually utilize this platform, and they have full control of the data sources. They are controlling the quality, controlling in the sense that they are making sure that you have a good quality, and so on. So that's the first example that comes to my mind. And also in healthcare as well, I know that Johnson and Johnson, they took very seriously the data governance part, because also healthcare is very highly regulated, and they have also established an appropriate structure within the organization that is taking care of this aspect.
I would like to go back to this one question. How do we get more practical? Where do you start with the data governance?
So I think it depends on what stage is your organization. So I would say that there is not like one type of solution, because it might be that you have already some data expertise in your organization and some data science knowledge. And I believe the people who are already in this field, and they are interested towards data governance, you could already start pulling a group of people that they could start shaping your data governance schema and how you want to move there. On the other side, if you have absolutely no knowledge inside the company, then I think a good idea is that you start with someone that has already some expertise, maybe some consulting company, because hiring people specifically for that reason, I think it requires too much of resources, too much of investment, and so on. So I think in this case, if you don't have any knowledge in general, it really helps if you ask for an advice for some consulting, so that they can help you kickstart the process and shape it, because they can guide you through all these different phases. So I would say these are like the two, let's say, most common examples that we would see.
No, that's a great start for any company out there.
Moving on to the next section, we have a couple of questions.
To spice it up a bit.
Yes, we have 5 questions where we would like to get your take on. So let's start.
Yeah. So if you had to recommend only one book, either fiction or nonfiction, you choose, what would it be?
So that's difficult now, because the book I would recommend goes specifically to Greek audience, because probably it's not translated into any other language. But I think I will go with it in case we have Greek viewers, because it's one of my favorite ones. So it's called Alone in the Atlantic, and it's written. So it's written by a Greek person. He's from Samos, so the place that I was born and I was raised. And this guy was a Greek immigrant in the US that really loved sailing. And he sailed from Virginia to Samos all the way on his own. It took him 60 days without a stop, without anything. He crossed the Atlantic. He went through Mediterranean Sea, and they picked him up in Samos. And the reason why I love the book is because, first of all, is the definition of leadership. From the planning to execution to how strong you need to be to support your decisions through critical moments, through everything. For me, this book is a definition of leadership, and also for following your dream. So he really liked sailing. He really wanted to try something like this, which to many people sounded crazy, but he stuck to it. So it's like how dynamic he was, the planning. So everything is in there. That's why I love it so much. And because it's also from Samos, that is my homeland.
Okay, next question. What is a habit you struggle to get rid of, and why?
I need to think here.
Or it could be also a habit you would like to acquire, but struggle to acquire it.
I think I would like to get rid of overthinking, because I tend to overthink a lot, because I want to make sure I have covered all the aspects they are possible when I want to present an idea, a solution. And I think sometimes this overthinking doesn't really help because you start thinking of things that they do not really make any sense and they won't have an impact anyway. So I would say I would like to get rid of overthinking and just be
Good one.
straight to the point.
Good one. We all could use that. Probably. So next question. What is the piece of advice you would give yourself 6 months ago?
I think it's the same that I would give even 1 year ago, and that would be take the risk and go for it. It doesn't that come so naturally to me. In the end, I would always go for what I want, even though it's not the most prearranged path. I would always do what I want and what I believe in. But I would like this to come a bit easier so that I don't need to, it goes again with overthinking, that I don't need to overthink and so deeply all of my decisions. So take the risk and go for it. Because what I've seen from my experience so far, fortune rewards the people that take the risk. So, yeah, I think go for it and take the risk.
Great. Next question. What is your favorite productivity hack or tool, and how has it helped you?
Productivity hack.
Could be anything, right?
Yeah, I think starting small. Because when you start with something, of course, you have this picture of how you want it to look like, the big picture, but it takes time until you reach this big picture. There are a lot of building blocks you need to put together under it. So I would say start small and then start building from that upwards or further. So start small.
Yeah. And the last question. What are the 3 personal or professional goals that you set for yourself for this year? We are in January, let's say this year, resolutions.
Interesting. I think the first and the most important one will be the work-life balance. I want to get back to being able to have also other things to do other than just working. And being able to go for a walk, do some sports, meet my friends. So everything that comes with this work-life balance. So that would be the number one. Then the second one would be that I want to get better at skiing because it's something I really love doing. I didn't have the time so far to do it due to a lot of work and focusing mostly on the professional aspects. But that would be the second one. And then the third one, when it comes to data and AI, I want to continue having a very good technical knowledge. We keep catching up with all the latest developments and advancements in this field, and also get a bit more out of my comfort zone and try maybe even more public speaking and getting all these AI and data experience that I have from all these years that I have been working in the area.
We should do a ski trip.
That would be lovely. That would be amazing.
We're in Switzerland after all.
Yes, exactly.
It would be a crime
totally.
not to use
Yes. The ones that they come right now to me. The number one for me is getting again balance in my life. Start getting back to the things that they give me this balance. They make me enjoy life, and they remind me that work is not the most important thing in my life. There are also other things that I love doing equally and with the same importance.
Do you maybe have also some professional goal in terms of career? Maybe something like, I don't know, give more conference talks or post more online about your expertise, something like that, maybe?
Mm-hmm. I think both are things that they are within my bucket list, let's say, that I want to do. So I would say both. But that's within the things I want to do, and also keep developing within this AI space. Mm-hmm. Like continue being in the forefront, meaning having very good knowledge of the technical topics, and also being able to show this more to the world.
Great. Okay, I would say let's do a wrap up. Let's start with key takeaways from your personal journey you would like to share as some kind of advice, as some kind of impulses with the listeners.
So I think the first important conclusion from our discussion is that no matter where you are, no matter where you started, nowadays you can change the direction and go towards what speaks closer to your heart. There are a lot of resources, a lot of platforms out there that you can nowadays use and catch up with the knowledge, with the necessary knowledge in order to go towards the direction that you want. So I think that's the first important one. And the second one would be that just go for it. Take the risk and try to find what makes you the most happy in your professional environment. Try different things. Explore with different type of work, if this is research, if this is consulting, if this is corporate, until you find the one that you say, that's it. That's what I want to do, and this is what I want to focus on. So for me, those are the two most important conclusions from our discussion so far.
Okay, great. It's been a pleasure, Anastasia. It was such a nice discussion, lovely discussion. Time went by super quickly, and thank you for all your insights. I think the key takeaways are just marvelous for anyone who are listening to us.
Yeah, very inspiring.
Yeah. And we are really looking forward to welcome you back sometime soon.
Oh, I would be honored to come back again. Thanks a lot. I really enjoyed it. It's always super fascinating and interesting to talk to you. So yeah, happy to come back.